Okay, so this is pretty awkward to admit, I won't lie. But considering recent events, my life is pretty much over anyway. So I might as well share it to the internet, I guess. As the title alludes to, I did indeed acquire an artificial lover not too long ago. And no, it's not a sex robot. That just sounds disgusting, like I'm out here banging R2-D2 or something. Nothing could be further from the truth. This whole thing kinda came out of nowhere for me. I never planned on purchasing such an item. Hell, I've never even paid for porn before. But also, I haven't had a girlfriend in a while either. So, 2 weeks ago, I got dragged along to this convention by my good buddy Hal. Hal is a big dude, in both the vertical and horizontal department, with shaggy hair and a wiry orange beard. I'll be first to admit that he's a bit strange, but he's always been a good friend. Hal claimed this convention was a gaming expo. It was only after we were walking inside that I realized it was actually an adult entertainment convention. "What the hell, Hal?" I asked, oogling the flyer of two voluptuous women. "You said this was a gaming expo." Hal scratched his neck and shrugged. "Well, it kind of is. They have games," he replied with a pensive smile. I shot a glare back. "Oh yeah, games like Who's in My Mouth?" Hal seemed to shrink a bit as I contemplated Ubering the 45-minute drive back home. "Sorry dude, but you never would have come if I told you the truth." He was right, and I shuddered at the unfortunate euphemism in its choice of wording combined with our current location. I complained and moaned a bit more, but still followed Hal inside. The two of us entered, and I basically gave up on convincing him to reconsider. We walked inside and were immediately met by a cornucopia of provocatively dressed ladies, cheesy-faced salesmen, and neckbeards trying desperately to tuck in their half-jobs into their belts. Rows of booths and tents had been set up to display the latest and greatest in personal pleasure devices. There were sections showcasing virtual reality and pleasure capsules designed for couples. Toys, pills, gels, lubricants filled every shelf. There was even an area dedicated to taking a photograph of the porn star, because, who wouldn't want to take a photo like that on their Facebook? It was basically exactly the way I expected it to be. And look, to anyone who enjoys those particular activities, you do you. I'm not trying to make fun, and since no one is allowed to have opinions about anything in this day and age without someone being outraged, all I'm trying to say is that it wasn't my cup of tea. Hal was like a kid in a candy shop though, and he began skipping around the vast aisles, and I followed him for a bit, minding every step. At one point, he let out a high-pitched squeal, as if imitating a squeezed piglet. He then waddled quickly away and excitedly joined a group of guys standing around a petite, brunette-haired girl in a lime green bikini. I sighed and decided to hang back, still very much remorseful for my life decisions. "Hello there, sir," a chipper voice called behind me. To my dismay, it was clear the question was directed at me. I turned and saw a man leaning casually over a booth counter. "How you doing?" the man asked, his teeth frozen in a predatory loan shark smile that gelled perfectly with his checkered business suit. His hair was gelled back and eyebrows trimmed to be perfectly symmetrical. He looked like the type of guy who would haggle on the ransom for his mother's life. The words "Lovers of the Future" were embroidered on the banner above him, but behind the desk was the real curiosity. 3 female figures stood directly behind him. Spotlights shone down upon them, displaying every inch of their curvaceous frames. I thought they were booth girls, but their complete lack of movement told me otherwise. The left one was Caucasian, a redhead with green eyes dressed in pink lingerie. The middle was African American, rich auburn hair and eyes, wearing white lingerie. and the one on the right was Asian, with cobalt hair, green eyes, and black lingerie. Their physical appearance were basically of angels, devoid of any skin imperfection or scar of any kind. Their figures were full and plump in the right areas. It was as if God himself had carefully handcrafted each of them to be absolutely gorgeous beyond anything naturally attainable. "Sex dolls?" I asked, pointing at the three ladies. The salesman gritted his teeth. "We actually prefer the term artificial lovers. Allows them more agency, but you got the basic idea. They are sensual companions, programmed to fulfill your every desire." His grin seemed to widen as he spoke. He then shot his hand out towards me. "My name's Chuck, my friend." I met his hand and shook. "Carl," I replied. "Nice to meet you, Kyle. Care to take a closer look?" I knew I shouldn't, but with how busy gallivanting around masturbation land, I decided I had nothing better to do. Chuck guided me past the booth and back into the small tent. There, I saw the girls close up and noticed the staggering amount of detail on them, from the minuscule pores of their eyelashes to the almost artistic application of their makeup. I know they obviously wanted to make them look presentable, but I didn't expect that level of detail. They didn't even look like dolls, and if you would have stopped me on the street and told me they were, I never would have believed it. "This is Erica, Vanessa, and Midori," Chuck said, pointing left to right. "Wow," I replied. Chuck bore an expression like he enjoyed huffing his own farts. "Not bad, Wanna touch?" He gestured me closer, and I stared into the eyes of Erica, the red-headed doll. I put my hand up to her cheek and gently caressed it. It was amazing. Not rubbery or artificial at all. It felt exactly like real skin. Damn, I had no idea they... I paused and began running my hand gently through her crimson locks. The smell of sweet lilac gently wafted off from her. It was honestly so damn weird, seeing something that looked so human, yet it wasn't. Her emerald green eyes then suddenly darted to me. "Hello, Kevin." I lurched back and nearly messed myself as she suddenly spoke. Chuck erupted into a raspy smoker laugh. "I'm sorry, I couldn't resist." He continued laughing as I recomposed myself. "It's Carl," I clarified. Chuck didn't even acknowledge it as he held up a small remote. "You can put in your preferences with this. Just a little prank I like to pull on people." Carl waltzed over and proudly slapped the agent doll on the ass. "So what do you think, Keith?" he asked, putting his hands on his hips. I glanced at the three dolls and shrugged. "Carl," I clarified once again. "I didn't know they were so realistic nowadays." Chuck nodded, displaying that smile I had quickly begun to detest. "You seem like a good guy, Carl. I want to offer you something." He waved me close, putting a hand on my shoulder as if trying to seem less douchey. "How'd you like to take one of them home?" I eyed him skeptically, knowing he was about to lay some bullcrap upon me. Chuck was prepared though. "Now, before you say anything, this is a limited time offer and there is no cost involved whatsoever." His arms spread like a referee after a missed field goal. "You see, Carl, I represent a brand new enterprise. We are just starting out and are currently looking to give away a few lovers free of charge, a trial run, before we fully launch our product line. So, what do you say? Want to try her out?" I looked back at the dolls, still doubtful of the offer. "And?" I asked. "And? That's it. You do what you want, and report your experience back to us. Chuck handed me a black business card. Lovers of the Future was written again, accompanied with the personal information of one Chuck Hagerman. For the first time, I honestly considered it. Obviously, the prospect of the whole thing was a bit uncomfortable. I just never would have pictured myself, well, doing that. She was a machine, and the whole idea was just really strange. You're just giving them away? I asked, still skeptical. Chuck nodded excitedly. Limited time offer, he proudly emphasized. The old adage of things being too good to be true arose in my mind. I knew there was something he was failing to mention. But an offer like that didn't come up every day. I also did always have a bit of a thing for redheads. Chuck gave me a rundown on how they worked. He showed me the remote he had used to previously scare the hell out of me and explained that was the master control. You could input preferences, set personality features, and other various functions. Chuck said they could walk, talk, and perform various maneuvers. Without a doubt, it was one of the most awkward conversations of my life. No matter how many times I winced, Chuck refused to stop using words like vulva, coitus, and prostate stimulation-induced climax, as if coating them with technical jargon made them any less cringeworthy. In the end, I agreed mostly so that he would just stop talking. Obviously, I didn't want Hal to know anything about it, but luckily, Chuck had a solution for that. He told me that the dolls he had with him were only floor models. He said my doll would be delivered personally and inconspicuously to my home residence. I was thankful for that, and after a few more minutes of random questions and filling out paperwork, I thanked him and left. Despite having not lost a single dollar on the transaction, I still felt as though I had been swindled as I walked away. I looked back and noticed that no one seemed to be going near that particular booth. I thought that was strange. I rendezvoused with Hal soon after and found him lugging around a generous-sized bag of goodies. "Hey dude, find anything?" Hal asked with a smile as I approached him. I scoffed and shook my head. "Oh, that's too bad. Here, check this out." He went to withdraw an item from his bag until my rapidly flailing hands made him pause. He then chuckled and continued anyways, revealing a bag of some multicolored candies. The word "bag of dicks" was embroidered upon the front. "Gonna give them to my boss," Hal proclaimed with a chuckle. "I hope you don't want to work there anymore." Hal and I continued browsing for longer than I would have liked, but eventually we wrapped it up and left. The next day I got up and began the work week same as any other, while the memory of my impromptu decision slipped back in my mind. On Wednesday of that week, I got an email from Chuck Hagerman telling me that my delivery was due that day. Apparently, Chuck's idea of inconspicuous delivery was leaving a blank, 6-foot-tall box on my doorstep. The thing weighed a ton, but after some struggle, I managed to cram it inside. Luckily for me, I live alone in a townhouse, so I didn't have any pesky roommates to hide my new accessory from. I got some scissors and began slicing the box open. It took some effort, but soon after, the outer shell of the package peeled away. That's when I saw her. A red-headed, green-eyed girl wrapped neatly in a protective case. Seeing a human in a box like that was the weirdest thing I could have ever imagined. I mean, yeah, I know she's technically an android, but she looked so authentic. I freed her from the plastic prison and proceeded to get things set up. I found the remote that Chuck had shown me beforehand. I spent some time configuring it and consulting the instruction booklet that accompanied the package. The entire thing was apparently operated by two large batteries that were about the size of my fist. They were rechargeable and fit in a panel on her lower back. About 3 hours of trial and error, I was finally able to get her up and running. "Hello, Carl," she spoke softly as she activated. Her green eyes blinked and lips curled into a cutesy smile. I stared, both unnerved and enamored by the sight of her. Hi, Erica." She looked at me expectantly, with green eyes seeming to shimmer. "How are you?" I asked, caught a bit off guard. "I am good, now that I am with you." Her nose crinkled as she spoke. The skin around her eyes shifted ever so slightly. The minuscule dimples formed on her cheeks as she smiled. Once again, the sheer amount of minute detail and finesse that had gone into crafting her was astounding. She and I exchanged some basic conversations so that I could establish a baseline for what I was dealing with. "What's your favorite color?" "Green." "How old are you?" 24. "What's your favorite animal?" "Bunnies." "What color is my underwear?" She didn't know that one. I just sat there and talked with her for a while, my amazement growing with every response she gave. I soon realized that she could adapt to conversation. She remembered details about things I told her, and on one occasion, she even made a joke about the ugly pattern of my couch's fabric. It was incredible and true. Chuck had emphasized how advanced she was, but she surpassed even what I had imagined. It was like she had a distinct personality of her own. Eventually, the hour grew late, and I escorted Erica down the hall and into my bedroom. Her movements were slow and a bit awkward, but that was really the only thing keeping her from appearing almost entirely human. We got into my room, and Erica stood, prudent, at the foot of the bed, her verdant eyes curiously fixated upon me. I decided then would be a good time to, well, test out the more advanced features in her programming. Erica seemed to already know what was happening. She unzipped her grey tracksuit and let it fall to her feet. She stood there wearing only a pink bra and matching panties. I don't think I really need to go into detail about what happened next, but just know that, yes, it was what you're thinking, and yes, it definitely lasted longer than 2 minutes. Like I said, this was awkward for all of us. So let's just say that she performed her duties adequately and with great enthusiasm and leave it at that. For the next few days, I continued to spend time with Erica. At night, I powdered her down and stored her in the closet in my spare bedroom. The rest of that week went by without a hitch, but on Saturday, I began to notice something peculiar. It started with the smell. It was a pungent, almost mildew-like scent that seemed to hang in the air. It didn't take me long to realize it was coming from Erica. Chuck had never mentioned anything about extraneous sanitation procedures, and the instructions booklet didn't either. I read through the instructions again and tried to determine where the odor was coming from. I learned a bit more about her operating system in the process and found that there were 2 regulators responsible for venting her internal mechanics located just behind her ears. I thought maybe one of them had become dysfunctional and caused the unpleasant scent to linger. I peeled back her hair and soon after the panel on the back of her head. There, I found the 2 aforementioned regulators, with one of them being visibly damaged. I don't know how that happened exactly, but a certain dent in the headboard of my bed has me suspicious. The business card that Chuck had given me was still in my wallet, so I took it out and shot him an email. I then reactivated Erica. Her eyes flickered as she awoke. "Good morning, Carl," she said with a smile. It was already 3 p.m. by that point, but damn it, she was too cute for me to correct. Hi, Erica. I paused and wondered how the hell I was supposed to phrase my question. Are you feeling okay? Erica nodded. I feel good, she replied. Silence then befell for a moment, and a slight grimace formed on her face. Is something wrong? She asked. The question threw me off a bit, as I was under the impression she could only reply from direct words. It seemed like she had read my expression or body language. Regardless, I didn't have the heart to say it. No, everything is fine. I just wanted to make sure you liked it here. Erica's smile quickly returned, and she nodded once more. The smell had really begun to get rancid. I talked with Erica a bit more before deciding to power her down for the night. For some reason, I couldn't locate her remote. I thought that was a bit weird, but being tired, I didn't really think much of it. I then returned to my room and got into bed. The next thing I know, I woke up randomly in the middle of the night. Or at least, I thought it was random. It was still dark out, and so I rolled over to go back to sleep. That's when I saw the face in my bed staring back at me. I was tired, and I don't remember exactly how I reacted. All I remember is loud shrieking, flailing, and then falling on my back hard. I crab walked away and flung the light switch up. A light brighter than 1,000 suns seared into my eyeballs. After a moment of adjusting, I saw Erica in my bed, looking quite concerned. Jesus Christ, Erica, you nearly gave me a heart attack. I laughed to myself, feeling as though an anaconda had released its stranglehold on my body. The surge of adrenaline caused my hands to shake wildly, and I took a deep breath to calm myself down. I'm sorry, I was not properly put into sleep mode, she meekly replied. She sat at the edge of the bed and stared down. It almost seemed like she was genuinely remorseful for scaring the hell out of me. How can an android feel remorse? I reassured her that I wasn't upset and escorted her back to the other room. I also made sure to clearly emphasize that she was never to enter my room without permission, especially in the middle of the night. I powered her down in the guest bed and returned to my room. There were still so many questions on my mind about her, and every day I seemed to be astounded by her capabilities. Chuck really undersold her capabilities. In fact, I wasn't even sure how exactly she got reactivated that night. I was almost positive I had powered her down. The next day, I went to work as usual. When I returned home, I found that the smell had gotten even worse. I still had no reply from Chuck over email. His lack of responses really began to annoy me. I still couldn't find the damn remote either. I decided to just leave Erica be until I heard back from Chuck. That night, as I was several hours into battling my insomnia, I heard something outside my room. Creak, creak, creak. It sounded like someone walking down the hallway towards Erica's room. My house is a bit older. Hardwood floors everywhere that creak in certain spots. My immediate thought was Erica, but I was absolutely sure I'd shut her down earlier. It had to be someone else. Creak, creak, creak. The footsteps then shuffled down past my room. My heart had lodged itself firmly in my throat by that point, and I thought someone had broken in. Carefully, I reached under my bed and grabbed my baseball bat. The footsteps outside had since gone silent. Unfortunately for my dumbass, I had left my phone charging in the living room, so I had no ability to call the police. Minor shuffling sounds continued out in the living room, and I knew I had to go and see. I clutched the bat tight, and, as carefully as possible, I pushed my bedroom door open. I glanced down the hallway in both directions, and then I saw her. Erica was knelt down by the living room table, shuffling through papers upon the floor. Erica? She froze immediately, but did not turn back. I saw only her silhouette, contrasted by the moonlight shining in the windows. Erica, what are you doing? I asked. Slowly, her head turned back towards me, still hidden in shadow. She then rose slowly to her feet. My heart began to thunder in my chest, and suddenly my companion seemed incredibly ominous, standing motionless in the dark. I flicked on the light and saw her standing there, looking completely normal. She sported her typical smile and wide, doe eyes, as if nothing was wrong. At her feet were a cluster of papers and documents, but I couldn't make out what they exactly were. Then, in her right hand, I saw she was holding her own remote. I'm sorry, Carl, Erica spoke, and my blood froze in my veins. I then realized the terrible mistake I'd made. The footsteps in the hallway crept up behind me. Something hard slammed into the back of my head before I even had the chance to turn. Everything faded to black after that. I woke up freezing. My arms shivered and teeth chattered uncontrollably as I groggily looked around. I was in my bathtub, with chunks of ice surrounding me. A searing pain shot through my right abdomen as I awkwardly clambered out onto the floor. I fell hard as my wobbling legs proved unable to maintain balance on the slippery floor. My entire body was pale as a sheet. Lavender rings had formed under my eyes, and my lips were blue as seawater. That wasn't even the worst of it. On the right side of my abdomen, just below my ribs, was a large scar. It appeared haphazardly stitched together, as if someone had been forced to do it quickly. Somehow, I managed to drag myself out into the living room where I found my phone. I dialed 911 and lost consciousness once more soon after. The last thing I saw was Erica, standing in the corner, looking at me. I'm guessing that was the first time the cops responded to a call from a naked guy fresh out of an ice bath with a love doll stationed beside. Because the looks they gave me later on were absolutely priceless. It was later discovered by hospital staff that I was in the early stages of hypothermia, and if I had been in that tub another 20 minutes, I may not have been able to tell this story. They also discovered that I was missing both my right kidney and a large chunk of my liver. I guess that explains the stitches. The cops were of course quite curious about my housemate, but I didn't even know what to tell them. Apparently, Erica was at my side when the cops arrived. She had covered me with a blanket and was trying to warm me up as the cops rolled up. They took me to the hospital and took her into custody. It was only after trying to obtain her fingerprints and realizing that she didn't have any that they discovered what she actually was. That must have been a really strange moment for them. They interrogated me for a long damn time after that. It wasn't me they were really after though. It was Erica. But more specifically, her creator. Erica was not a polyurethane android as I'd been led to believe. Her design was a whole lot more sophisticated and disturbing than that. Her ligaments, tendons, and major organs were replaced by a series of artificial ones. Her mechanical skeleton was interlaced with a complex series of preservative equipment, but her skin, eyes, brain, teeth, and skull were confirmed to be authentic and not artificial. Parts of her originated from an actual human woman. They used a lot more technical terms, but I didn't understand a whole lot. They weren't able to get any DNA samples, but Erica herself bears a striking resemblance to a missing girl from Minnesota. The smell from earlier turned out to be a result from her skin beginning to rot after the failure of the preservation components. The cops suspect me of doing these horrible augmentations to her. I only had one name to counter them: Chuck Hagerman. They clearly don't believe my story, and I don't even blame them. They checked the records of that stupid expo, and big surprise, there was no record of anyone named Chuck Hagerman ever being there. Even the email address he gave me just displays an error message when I tried to contact it. The papers that Erica was digging through that night turned out to be my banking information, social security, birth certificate, W-2s, and other personal things. A lot of my financial accounts have been compromised, which I'm sure I also have Chuck to thank for. Apparently, a human kidney is worth about $65,000 on the black market. I don't know why it is that whoever took it didn't take more, honestly. Maybe Erica stopped them. Maybe they just ran out of time while they were harvesting. But I suspect it's something more than that. The X-ray also uncovered a microchip implanted in the skin between my thumb and index finger. I don't even know what to do at this point. I had no idea technology like this even existed, let alone would be used for such nefarious purposes. I just feel so bad for Erica more than anything. I don't know what will happen to her now, but it's clear she can never be the girl she once was. In conclusion, I would just like to say, screw you, Chuck Hagerman. You sick asshole. I know that's not your real name, and I know you know that I know what you're up to. I may be confined to a hospital bed for now, but you can't hide forever. I want my kidney back, and if it takes me the rest of my life, I will find you. Erica told me some interesting things. Things that are about to make life very difficult for you.